Item number 16. As required by 213 of the Hospital District bylaws, annually review and evaluate the administrator, discuss and necessarily take approved forms to be used by board members to evaluate the administrator, and establish time frame for evaluations to be completed and reviewed. All right, Ray and I discussed this today, and here's what I think. I think that what we ought to do is this form should not only be completed by the board. I don't think this should just be completed by Ray. What Ray and I decided is we thought that the department heads should also fill this out. And correct me with the terminologies here. It's the medical executive committee?
Medical staff,
correct?
Medical staff executive.
Is the medical executive staff, and then I suggested 2 volunteers, which was Sheriff Lawler and Gary Whittle, assuming that they want to do it, Ray will get in with them to do that, so that we kind of get a slice of the hospital. This is going to be a blind deal, and the plans is once we get this completed, we will get these to, I think we're going to actually take them to Lindsay to begin with, and then Lindsay and Kelly. Lindsay's raised AA, for those of y'all that don't know, and then Kelly Van Zant are going to come to this, and they're going to come up with some sort of way to kind of give us a synopsis of what came out of this. Does that make sense? So that it'll somewhat be graded on the curve. And, you know, I don't think it'll be necessarily as simple as like what our dashboard is, but I don't really want it to come to me like the Finance Committee deal does, where it's 28 pages. You know, there has to be a happy medium in there to where it's something we can digest. And so, and the same thing's true, I don't want to lump the next thing in, but the same thing's true as far as the board. And I'll tell you what I told Ray, I've never taken a test that I knew all the answers to that I failed. And so I don't think it's fair for the board necessarily just to grade themselves. I would like the board's responses to be separate in one column, and I would like the department heads to be in one column, and I'd like for the medical executive committee to be in one, and I'd like the volunteers to be in one, you know, so that we can kind of see what it is, you know, and come up with it. But
I would like to ensure that any of the board members that want to say something that's not actually a part of any of the forms, they have an opportunity to say that as well.
Yeah,
there's a comment section on there.
Yeah, last page has that.
And so
That's for comments.
I'm asking y'all, I'm assuming that y'all looked at this in your packet, and so, I mean.
So my complaint is that this is not the agenda item that I asked to be in the agenda. Somebody modified it. And I'm curious who it was, whether it was the secretary, the president, or Mr. Reynolds.
It was Dr. Burrows and I worked on this and decided to
reword what I asked to have on the agenda.
No, I thought we would add to it what we were actually planning to do, so there would be more clarification as to what we were going to speak about and arrange during the meeting.
But you eliminated the second sentence. My second sentence was consider and take action if needed regarding the administrator's employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, dismissal, complaints, or charges. That was removed from our request to have on the agenda.
Okay, well that's
I apologize, I didn't
Okay.
realize that was.
But let me speak to that if I might too, because, you know, you quote the bylaw, and the bylaw says exactly as it's stated on the agenda. The bylaws does not have the second sentence on this. It has in the bylaws. And so that's the way the agenda item was worded.
That's why it's
in the
quoted.
bylaws.
That's why it was quoted in the email.
Sir?
That's why it was quoted in the email that was sent when I asked for it. I said in quotes, annually review and evaluate the administrator, close quotes. Then the second sentence, consider and take action if needed. Whenever Mr. Hankins asked for something to be in the agenda and I was secretary, I copied and pasted. I didn't revise it. When Dr. Burrows
Like I said,
asked me,
I apologize. My
did the same
intention
thing.
was not to revise it. My intention was to set up an order with which to do stuff.
Okay,
And I
understood.
will not do it again.
Okay, thank you.
You thought you'd been board secretary for years, and here it is your first week, and you're already getting in trouble. Okay, so what I said a while ago, does that sound like something that y'all agree to? Would somebody like to make a motion, or would somebody like to say, no, Chip, you and Ray are idiots, here's what we'd like to see done?
You're taking one at a time or both?
No, just one time.
Okay, good.
I don't disagree, you should have something in writing to provide feedback.
Sir?
I don't disagree that there should be something in writing to provide feedback.
Okay. So that was the one that just had kind of one choice of forms, right? Which one we've been using at the hospital for the last few years?
Yes,
et cetera, right?
what I did with this form is I took the form that we've been using to evaluate the CEO for years. And then I went to the bylaws, and any item that was in the bylaws that was not listed in the administrative responsibilities, I added that. So I believe I covered every item that's in the bylaws, plus the items that have historically been used to evaluate the administrator.
All right.
So we're going to have the ability to provide the feedback in writing and any extra if we want to verbally at the same time.
There is a form that you use to identify each item and score each item, and then the last page there is an opportunity for any other feedback. Yes.
I saw that comment section, I was wondering if that was it, yeah.
It will not be limited to the one sheet.
No,
should it be?
and my plan is to come in here in the next couple of weeks and us sit down and discuss this and say, okay, here's the way our stuff looks. And so I would like to see us set some sort of timeline. I think this is 3 or 4 agendas let's get this done and get it behind us. I'm tired of it, ready to stew.
Back to January.
And so my suggestion is if someone was to make a motion that they would put a timeline that sometime in the month of June, we put this to rest and we go on and do something positive and productive and get on down the road. So, like Dr. Burrows, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we proceed with forms and evaluations and gather that information together over the next month and make said announcements and recommendations based on that.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Shows it passes 7-0, Ms. Secretary.